Welcome back to the channel. On this episode of Bum with a Wrench, I'm going to start getting all the wiring done. So as I said before, I'm going to film this a little bit different than I normally have. Maybe that'll be a little bit more appealing to people, maybe it won't, I don't know. But I'm not going to film all of what I'm doing. I'm just going to film it in chunks and segments. So first off, back in the car, inside the car, good place to be. Haven't been in here in a while. So to get started, I need to start removing a lot of stuff that's in here because we got coils to install, we got a computer to install, we got a relay box over there to install, and I got a lot of wire to pull. We got a lot of wire in the front that needs to connect to the wire on the inside of the car. So let's get started. All right, I'm starting to get stuff disconnected and out of the car here so I can get into what little bit of underdash there actually is in this car. So I started by just removing the steering wheel, dropping the steering column, and pulling the gauges that are currently in the car out of the car, because again, we're switching to Dakota Digital. So these are pretty nice gauges. There's really nothing wrong with them. Except for they're just not the style that I really want to go with. You'll notice that they have the little gauges here in the cluster, where this is 68 was the first year for the center console. So I have the center console with all the gauges and all that kind of stuff, which frees up one of these. So then you can have your tach and you can have your speedometer where they should be. So I wanted to change those out, and in doing so, I removed it. What I thought was a pretty high-tech gauge cluster ends up being kind of, we'll call it semi-tech. So you still have your standard connections. What I did was I went ahead and cut them short, or cut them long, so that I could read what they were. That way, if I go to use it into another car, I know which each one does, even though they do have a marking here on the back of the cluster. I just thought that would be helpful in the future. This does have a module that goes with it. If you see here, that does have some Ethernet style connectors. So I'll have to liberate the module and stuff out of the car at a later date. But this is what we took out. Let me show you what we're going to put in. All right, guys, we're back here in my favorite place, the air conditioning. Let's check out some of the jewelry that we got for this car. So like I showed you the gauges that were in the car, nothing wrong with them, just not quite the style I wanted to go with. These ones are from Dakota Digital, and they're not your standard Dakota Digital gauge. Let me get it, trying to get it in a place where you can, it doesn't have a reflection. There we go. You can kind of see that one right there. I think that looks pretty cool. It's got a real kind of classic retro style to it. Now obviously it's got the screen there in the center. Get this one kind of, there you go, that's good. It's not in the, sorry, I'm using my monitor to kind of see what you're seeing. This is the third time I've actually filmed this, because I felt like I was showing you the gauges but you couldn't see them, kind of thing. So I thought these are pretty cool. I can't remember what their designation on it, if it was like a retro mod or whatever it was, but it came with a pack. It was these two here, which again, you get your speedometer, you get your tachometer like your normal gauge cluster would have, but you still want to have, you know, obviously fuel and temp and oil pressure and voltage, and you know, that 68 was the first year for the center console. So with this kit, they also send you the sorry, I'm moving around a bit. There you can kind of look at the fuel one. That one doesn't really have a reflection on it. See how the fuel, I mean, it even has kind of that classic style lettering that lights up as well. And then you've got the gauges. Now these gauges, they're white background. Let me rotate them where you can see them a little bit more. There you go. Not so much reflection in those. You can see they're white faced on these, whereas those had like some silver. It was real retro. These will go in the center console. So these go down in front of the shifter, like the newer Camaros. when they reintroduced the Camaro, they put this back in because they were going for that retro look. I think this looks really cool. Again, that car didn't have a center console in it when we got it, and it's going to have one now, as you can see with the switches and stuff that we were going through on that last episode. Still haven't put the... Oh, they all fell. I'll edit that. No, I won't. So these are going to go right up here. Right like that. And then your shifter goes here. And then my switches that I just dropped on the floor go right here. Got a little glove box. Got a little surprise for the glove box too that I think is pretty cool. Something I can integrate into that, make it real modern, and you'll never even know it's there. I know the owner of this car, and he's gonna want, I think he's really gonna like that. So, but this is what that looks like. So in the car, you know, it's sitting next to you when you're driving. That's the, yeah. Anyways, the new gauges, guys. That's what it looks like. And all the switches I bought, you know, now scattered on the floor. All right, guys, let's get off to the next fun part. Well, I wanted to give you a quick update on the car here. Still removing wiring. You know, whenever you're doing this, don't really pay too much attention. I know this can get overwhelming, and you're like, oh, where does this go? Where does it don't? Just don't even worry about that. Because when you go to put it together, that's when you're going to be going through and going, oh, where's this circuit? And oh, where's the, you know, then you'll figure it out. Don't worry. Anyways, so these are the computers. This little doohickey here, and this big old honking thing. Why it's got these network cables? It's like a phone cable on this one. This is like a network cable that went up to the gauges, but then it's also got all the ignition, ground, sensor. You know, it's got all the gauges on these lugs as well. Huh? This thing's old. Surprisingly, not that old. On the back here is a date. It says May 12th, 2009. So that's interesting. I'm not going to place that as when this car was built because, you know, it's just gauges. You can update gauges at any time, kind of like when I did that 63 Fairlane for my buddy, which I should be getting an update on that car soon, out to you guys. I know what's going on with it, but it's almost done. So interior, exterior needed a lot of work. And it actually might make its way back up here. I think we were going to do something to it. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, but maybe we'll get an update on that car soon. So, little sticker here keeps falling off. Says void if removed. You know, don't really care. So, sorry, kind of, you know, veering off here. When they mounted this, you can see it's got mounting screws. Of course, whoever put it in the car just blew tech screws through the bottom of the cowl to mount it up to the bottom of the cowl. Awesome. You know, I don't know. Glad I'm doing this because tech screws into the cowl, which I can look down through the cowl and see the inside of the car now. That would have meant that in the rain, when this car got washed, it would have just dumped water down on your feet onto the electronics. So, you know, I mean, I guess everything happens for a reason, and getting in here and redoing the wiring on this car was to, you know, keep from destroying everything, I guess. Bad part is there's physical holes in a metal part of the car that's supposed to be completely sealed off to allow, basically a cowl allows air to flow, you know, into the car. That's how they're running the vents and stuff down here. And it also takes away the water. So it'll, on each side of the cowl, it'll drain down the sides. It's a rust point, really. That's what it is. That's why you don't park cars underneath trees, because all the tree debris will go into the cowl, get stuck down at the bottom of the cowl, rot out the side of the car. Obviously, they don't really do that much anymore. There is still cowls. You go pull a modern car, I can pop the S2000, pop that plastic piece off. There's a cowl right there. It's where you hide all your windshield wiper motor and arms and that kind of stuff. Anyways, so now I've got a decision to make. Either I pull the cowl off the car, which I've never done that on a Camaro before, so I don't know. I have to look that up, see how to actually do that. Hopefully I don't have to pull the trim around the window. Probably going to have to. And then weld it, which would mean I'd have to weld it. I'd probably weld it from the inside, put a mat down, tack weld it, close them up, kind of grind them flush. And then from the outside, same thing, grind it flush. However, the cowl inside on this car is painted the same color as the car. Not that big of a deal because it is in the cowl space. I could always just semi-gloss, rattle can the inside of the cowl. Or I could use some mastic, not mastic, sorry, that's Dynamat. I'm looking at Dynamat, so my mind's thinking mastic. Seam sealer. I could use some seam sealer on it. The problem with seam sealer, it's not a very long-term repair. It's more of a 10-year repair rather than lifetime of the car repair. I would hate to put a 10-year repair on this and then have that cause a major rust issue, rot issue with the car down the road. Obviously, I love to preserve these things, save these things. I'd love for this car to be around forever. 100 years after I'm dead, it'd be nice to have this car still be, in existence. But I don't know. I don't know what the world's going to be. But, that's what you got to plan for, I guess. So, I guess weld. I don't know. We'll see. But don't do that, people. Come on. Think things through before you just go blowing holes and stuff. That's stupid. They did put some silicone. If that makes any difference. Anyways, frustrated if you can't tell. Still got some more removal of wiring harness, but I thought I'd just stop in and show you guys what's going on. Anyways, let me get this removed. We'll see where we go from here. See what other fun things we find. All right, guys. All right, got all of the harness out of this car now. So all the wiring's completely out. I'm down to just the air conditioning. Basically, the vintage air system is about the only thing left. In the dashboard here, radio's gone, controls are gone. Steering column's still there, pedals are still there. With little bits of wiring here and there. The one thing I did cut was the harness that goes down to the transmission for like the neutral safety, reverse lights, that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, they didn't put a connector on it, so for serviceability, I'm going to put a connector on it so that it'll actually plug into the next my hand belt wiring harness with a connector. That way, if there's ever any problem and you wanted to either take the harness out of the car or take the transmission harness out of the car, you could do so simply by disconnecting it from the main harness. I think that's the better way to do things. I'm always thinking of how to make it more serviceable. So now that I've got everything out of the car, what I'm working on now is trying to find a place for these coils to go. Now this is just 4 of them. It's got 4 more. It's a V8. So I need to pack these in the car somehow. I spent a lot of time yesterday looking at where I could actually put these and was getting pretty discouraged until I noticed that behind the vintage airbox here, there's a cavity about this wide, all the way up to about here, all the way across. And I thought, wow, that's about what I need. If I've got a cavity this wide and I've got coil packs, that are like that. I've got a good distance between the coil packs. I've got space above and below for the connectors to go on top, spark plug wires to go on the bottom. The problem is that the coil packs would be mounted sandwiched between the firewall and the vintage air box. Now, I could pull the vintage air box out, mount them on the firewall, put the box back, but then you got to think, what happens when you got to change the spark plug wires, or you got a coil pack that goes bad? How are you going to service that? I came up with a solution, and to show you that, I'll take you in the office, take you over to the whiteboard, and kind of show you what my idea is for that. But as you can see now, this is where I've still got some more disassembly to do. I still have to take the cowl cover off the top of the cowl and then fill those holes that they made putting the those computers in the car. Guys, don't ever drill into something like that. If you've got to mount something to the car, really think about where you're mounting it, how you're mounting it, and how it's going to affect things going forward. You definitely don't want to put a hole in the car. I mean, you might as well just put a hole in the door, you know. You're going to see that hole a little bit more, but it's going to do the same thing. It's going to let water, moisture, rust, everything else go. Especially in the cowl, you don't see that very well. You know, if I wouldn't have seen that and I would have just ran with the wiring harness that was in the car, good possibility that this car could have leaked water through the years, rotting out the floor pan, rotting out the cowl, and getting into the wiring, rotting the wiring, causing computers to blow up. So let's not do that, guys. I'd like to think that my fans are a little smarter than that. So I have figured out a way to mount the coils where I want them to go, sandwiched between the vintage airbox mounted to the firewall. It requires, you know, a little bit of a, you know, engineering and custom fab work. So I'm gonna work on that a bit. So that's what we're down to now. Now that I've got a lot of the wiring out of the way, you can see this wiring over here in the corner is basically the vintage airbox. Some power wires coming up from the trunk. Those were those two wires that I didn't know where they went. Well, here they are. They powered the vintage air. I won't need those, so I'll go ahead and remove those down the line as I need to. But the things that I need to accomplish now in this car is mounting these, that being number one. Mounting my relay box over here in this vent area, and mounting the computer, and then on top of the computer, so I'm going to push the computer into that space. On top of the computer is going to be my fuse box. So to get into the fuse box, you would remove the kick panel. The fuse box would be right there. You'd pull it out, or not, you'd pull the cover off of it. Well, there's no cover on that one. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking as I'm saying it. Normally there's like a little cover. You guys know what I'm talking about. You go get in your car, there's a little cover over, you pull it off. This has got no cover on there. I was thinking about reusing the harness that was actually in this car. However, I've made the decision not to, and let me show you guys why. So draped across the back of my beautiful forklift here is the wiring harness that was in the car. Let me kind of put it a little bit back together here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the entire harness that was in the car. You can see it gets a little, you know, messy on this side, which is the driver's side, of course. As it moves to the passenger side, it gets a little less messy. Don't worry about any of this. None of this even matters. What does matter is right here. So this is what I was talking about, was saying that by removing those connectors on the firewall going forward, all the forward harnesses, if I removed all of this, I would remove the fuse panel as well. You can see they're one piece. Now they do separate. They were just separated. Little clips. This actually bolts to the firewall, by the way. It's got a little seal on this side to seal it off. But you can see it does separate. So I could utilize just this, which is basically what I need. However, I'm not going to do that because, one, I don't like destroying parts. Even though I wouldn't really be destroying this, I'd be utilizing it. However, I would still be destroying a special built, a purpose built wiring harness. This is a harness for a 60s Camaro. I'm sure it fits other models as well, but I know this fits a 68 Camaro. So being that I have a ton of other Camaro parts, again, I'm thinking about building a hardtop, give this thing a brother. I don't want to destroy this. So I have, like I said, I ordered a couple other harnesses. One, I ordered a fuse panel from Painless. No wires with that one, just the panel. And then I ordered a Amazon special that, again, had really high reviews. Looks very similar to this. Comes with all the connectors and everything you need. Even gives you diagrams and that kind of stuff. Not sponsored by them. Have no idea who makes it, but it seemed like a pretty good fuse wiring harness and fuse block. The fuse block looks dead similar. I mean, it almost looks like the same exact one. In fact, I'm sure they all use similar designs. It wouldn't surprise me if it was the same one. Everything looks exactly the same. The wires are labeled exactly the same as this one. I believe this one to be painless, although I haven't seen any markings saying that it is painless. Maybe this is an Amazon special. I don't know, but I do know this fits a 68 Camaro, and I don't want to destroy it by disassembling it even more. In fact, the harness that I took apart that goes forward on the car, I'm going to reassemble that and put it with this and mark this whole harness as a harness for a 68 Camaro. I'll go ahead and put the gauges and stuff with it. That way, if I go to build another car, I've got everything I need to do that. So, but back to the coils. And honestly, that is my next task. I gotta get those coils in the car, because getting those coils in the car is going to set where a lot of the big wiring for that goes. Let me show you the wiring for that. So the wiring for the coils, I have, these are all your coils, right? And then it goes into a connector. That connector goes into a jumper. That jumper goes across the car. This is backwards. The jumper goes across the car and then into the computer harness. I don't know if I'll need this jumper or not. Probably will, but if I don't, I can plug this directly into the computer if I need to. They just kind of give you the jumper depending on where you're going to put it. I need to know where all this is going to be, because as you can see, I got two of these. All of that. I've got two of these, and then I've got the same coming out of the computer. That is a lot of wires. And so this is really going to kind of set the precedence for what kind of space I have in there moving forward. I don't need a lot of what that wiring harness had. That wiring harness has a lot of circuits that I just do not need. I need headlights, taillights, turn signals, horn, electric motor for the top. I need doors, door locks, radio. I'm sure there's a couple other things, but I don't need a lot of the engine functions and stuff that does. The ignition is really going to be broke down to its basics at that point, because again, computer controlled. I don't need a lot of ignition control, so that's going to be broke down. Coils are number one. I got to get those done. Plus, I'm waiting on the Canon plugs for the engine harness. So to bring the engine harness into the car, I'm going to use a Canon plug, which is basically an aircraft style plug, very high end, very, very just well built, good connector, something I can rely on to supply power to all the engine management stuff without having any headaches or anything like that. Because basically a Canon plug is what they use in aircraft to connect like wiring harnesses from the wings to the fuselage, and all of the electronics in an aircraft. They're all done in that same Canon plug style design. It's a round plug that fits together, and it's got a locking ring. Perfect for what I need from moving from the engine bay to the inside of the car in a sealed manner, but yet something that's still going to give me very precise voltages, flowing through the connector. So back to what I need to do for mounting the coils. Let me show you what I got. All right, let me get rid of some of this. Back in here to my favorite place. This is kind of like bringing your thoughts, you know, into reality right here on the whiteboard. So you saw the way the coil packs were shaped. They were shaped like rectangles. There's 2 of them. So my plan, with bolts running through them, right? So my plan is to take those 2 rectangles and connect them into a line. So what you're going to end up with is those 2 coil packs actually lined up. I'll get long bolts that'll go through both coil packs to hold them both together. You'll have a line of 8 coils. There's plenty of room behind. So if you were looking from the top of the car down on the cowl, what you would see is you would see the firewall. You would see, you know, the top part of your steering wheel with your shaft going through. You have your center console that runs right here. Then we have my vintage air box. So the vintage air box sticks out a bit underneath, but on the inside it looks more like this. So this is that cavity that I'm talking about. The center stack here with your AC controls, your radio controls, and your ashtray, there's not a lot of space in here, mainly because on this side of the airbox you have all of your tubing coming out. Those are all the tubes that you saw. So I've got an air vent over here, I've got an air vent in the center of this stack, I've got an air vent over here, I've got a defrost vent here and a defrost vent here, that all go on the car. Remember, this is looking down, like if you're on top of the car looking down at it. So let me just remove the center console or center stack out of the dash real quick, because we don't need that. Where I need is right here. Let me remove that vent. And so my plan is to take these line of coils and I'm going to put them in this space right here. What I'll do is I'll have the electrical connection. So this view here is like if you're looking dead on it. This is your transmission hump. This would be your windshield here. And so that's how I'm going to mount them. So I'm going to have the electrical plugs sticking up, and then I'm going to have the spark plug wires sticking down. One, because if you have a plug wire that failed maybe on a couple of these first cylinders here, you could reach behind and unplug it. But here's the problem. When you hide something in a cavity like that, because basically if you were to look dead onto it, you would have your you have your transmission hump here. This area right here is completely covered by this air box. That's the dotted lines that you see. You wouldn't be able to see any of this because it's trapped here behind it. So my plan is, again, to line it up like this. And then what I'm going to do is on either end of it, I'm going to make a bracket. And that bracket is actually I'm going to rosette weld that to the firewall. And what that's going to look like is it's basically going to look like a piece of angle iron, right? Let me try and see if I can 3D draw this. There's your piece of angle iron. I don't know, whatever. That's horrible. Not an artist, by the way. So let me see if I can draw this in a way that I could explain it. So on this end of it, I'm going to have a hook, right? And on this end of it, I'm going to have just a tab that sticks out. And that's going to be in my piece of angle iron. And that piece of angle iron is going to weld to the dash. And so what you're going to have is you're going to have on this bracket's going to come in, and actually I drew that hook backwards. So the hook would be like this. Because basically what you're going to do is you're going to come low, and you're going to hook onto it. So you'll hook this bracket onto that hook, and then as you pull it back, this finger is actually going to go into a groove here, and the finger would be shaped wide on the back side, narrow on the front side, basically making a wedge. So as you brought this bracket in, that wedge would actually tighten up on the hook, allowing it not to jiggle or jounce, tightening it up. On this side, basically another bracket, and then you would have a tab that stuck off. You know, it would look more something like an angle iron piece as well. On this, it would have something similar to come off, and then you would have a bolt that goes through it. So as you hooked it in and brought it back, this tightened it up. You pushed it up tight to this bracket here, and then you ran a bolt through it that's holding your coil pack. So basically what that's going to do is it's going to lock that coil pack in place. But then if you need to service that coil pack for any reason, you need to change a coil or do diagnostics on a coil or change the spark plug wires, all you would do is pull that bolt, lip it down, let it rock down, hook it up off that hook, and then pull it out. So you would be able to get it out of this space fairly simple by just going down, because right in here is your transmission hump, your gas pedal here, and so all you would do is you just climb down in the footwell here, undo this bolt, and then unhook the coil pack and pull it out. You saw the length on the wires. I wouldn't attach any of the wires to the firewall up in here. I'd leave them all loose. That way when you rocked this thing out and pulled it out, that harness is loose. It makes the coils accessible and easily installed and removed. Going back in, all you have to do is slip it in. You know, blindly, you wouldn't even need to see what you're hooking it to. Just get it up there and hook onto it. Once you're hooked to it, rock it back forward, put your bolt in it. It's nice and tight. It's not going to go anywhere. And you're able to actually mount those coils on the inside of the car. Again, that's very important to me because of the overall look that I'm going for with this car. I'm telling you, that's going to make it totally awesome. However, in order for me to do these brackets and to do this whole process, I need to remove the vintage air. You know, this is one of the main reasons why I don't like building cars of this level. You know, you take a car that costs $100,000 that's already completely done, and then you start throwing massive parts at it and modifying it heavily. It's so hard that way. But I mean, you know, I guess that's just the way you build stuff. Sometimes you can't always start from the beginning and work your way toward the end in the way that you would want to. So that's going to be my goal today, is I'm going to get that airbox out of the car, get those coils mounted, and get that process done. That way I can check that off the list. I'm waiting for those barrel connectors, cannon plugs to come in so I can finish up the harness on the outside of the car. Once the harness on the outside of the car is done, I can close that hood, at least in the wiring standpoint, and be done with the wiring out there, which is a big hurdle forward. I only got a couple other things to do out there, some cooling, some coolant lines, coolant recovery, a couple other circuits for the alternator, just power and ground for the alternator. And then I got to run that the main battery cable through the floor over to the starter, as well as the negative to the bell housing. And then I will call that 99% completed under the hood. I won't have to do any more. Everything will be on the inside of the car. Again, getting this done is so important, because that gives me now the ability to make the spark plug wires and set up the spark plug wire holders down the side of the engine the way I want them to. You're really going to like that when that happens. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm going to jump into this bracketry and get that done. Next time on Bum with a Wrench, when you come back, I'll show you in detail, because I know this is a little bit hard to grasp. Hopefully you can kind of see what my idea is here, but when we come back, I'll show you what that looks like. I'll show you how that functions, and we can move forward on getting the relay box installed, computer installed, and then the new wiring going. That's going to be exciting to start pulling wire on the inside of this car and getting that wrapped up. We're getting very close for this car to run. It's going to be totally awesome. I cannot wait to light those tires up for the first time. All right, guys, as always, until next time.